On today's episode of Pistonhead Garage, well, this. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Pistonhead Garage. I'm Garrett, and on today's episode, I'm continuing my Skyline build by installing a new Mishimoto aluminum radiator. I've been having some heat issues with the car. The 2J apparently just like to generate a lot of heat, and a lot of the guys on the super groups are saying that electric fans don't always cut it, so unfortunately I don't have room to put a mechanical fan back on my engine, and the Aristo that this engine came off of didn't have a mechanical fan on it to begin with. It came with electric fans, but they're a lot heavier duty than what I have, which is a Mishimoto 14-inch fan that's on there right now. It's still a good fan, it just only moves about half the air that the stock clutch fan would move. So in order to help compensate, I'm going to try to add more efficiency to the radiator by adding a bigger radiator. So this is a little bit thicker than stock. Actually, this is about 3 times the thickness of the stock rad, which I'll show you in a moment. And as well as this has a 1.3 bar cap on it. It says right here 19 psi. And basically what that allows is the system can now build a little more pressure, and then therefore allow the temperature in the coolant to go higher without boiling over, basically, right? 100 degrees Celsius is the boiling point of water. With this, for every psi you add about a degree to that number. So 19 psi means 119 degrees is now the boiling point when this will basically explode, more or less. But yeah, so it's a pretty straightforward install, but we'll take you step by step through the process of what I'm going to do here. I've got to transfer my Mishimoto shroud and fan onto this radiator, which it didn't come with hardware, although there is mounting points on 4 corners here, so hopefully we can make something work there. But yeah, let's get right to it. Like any project, the first thing you want to do is jack up the car and support it on jack stands. Once the car is in the air, then I can drain the coolant out of the rad. What I'm demonstrating here is just that when you remove the cap from the rad, it allows air into the system and then the coolant will drain faster. Now that the rad's been drained, I can remove the support brackets that hold it in place, as well as the overflow hose and the upper rad hose. I also decided to remove my intake because it will give me better access to get down to the lower rad hose. Now that that's done, I can just remove the rad and unplug the fan. While I had the system drained, I decided it was a good idea to replace the thermostat. I did this simply by removing the nuts that hold the housing together, removing the old thermostat, and then installing the new one the same way I took the old one out. The lower nut is a bit tricky to get to, but I found it easiest just to go from underneath with a wobble extension. Just want to take a minute before I continue to show you this. These are 3 rads that fit the same vehicle. Here's the factory R34 GTT rad. Look how thin it is. Like that's ridiculous. And then next to it, this is out of a, if I can focus here, hang on a second. This rad here is out of an R33 GTST, and you can see even it is getting close to twice the thickness of the factory rad. So I don't know why this stock rad is so small even compared to the stock R33. But anyway, then you move on to the Mishimoto rad, which is a good 25 to 30% larger. Actually, sorry, I think it's 40% is what it says, claims 40% larger than the R33 rad. So going from my factory rad to the R33 rad helped my temps a bit, but not enough. So I'm hoping that this extra step and going full aluminum with a proper fitting shroud and fan will help keep the temperatures down. But we won't know until we get it in and get it all bled. So anyway, let's continue on with it. I'll get the shroud put on here. Installing the shroud is pretty straightforward. There's just two 10mm bolts that go on the top, and then the bottom can be held together with nuts and bolts, but in this case I just use zip ties for now. Next, it was just a matter of sliding the new rad into place and then lining up the grommet holes. I found that doing this from underneath the car was probably the easiest just because you can see the holes better. Once that was completed, I could reattach the retaining brackets, the upper and lower rad hose, as well as the overflow hose. Up until now, I've had no heater in the car, so I figured now that everything was drained, it was a good time to get some hose and hook up the heater core. I got halfway lucky in that one of the factory hoses that came on the engine was just the perfect fit to go to my R34 heater core. Unfortunately, the lower hose was not the right size, the right length, so I went and bought some universal hose from a local hardware store and ran it myself. Doesn't look the greatest, but it does the job. Now that all the hoses are hooked up, it's time to refill the system. I'm running straight water due to a track restriction here. We're not allowed to run glycol in the system, so I'm just using the Lucas additive to help bring the temperatures down, and then just straight tap water. So that's it for this video. Of course, the one step I didn't cover is bleeding the coolant system when you're done. It's pretty straightforward, especially on my car. You just jack the front up to make sure that the rad is the highest point on the car, and then run the car, get it up to temperature, let it run for a few minutes, and the trapped air should hopefully bubble out of the rad cap. Obviously leave the rad cap off so that can happen. So of course, if you liked the video, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you're subscribed to catch more videos on my Skyline build. As always, I'm Garrett, and I'll see you next time on Pistonhead Garage.